with that positive energy.
Okay, so this is some of my Grey Alien Abductions. And the reptilians were not involved in these. Just all Grey abductions. But let's see. The most current one was about 6 months ago, and it was a non-physical abduction. It was an astral abduction, or ethereal abduction. And so this Grey, I got up and went to the bathroom many times, and I kept feeling this entity by the right side of my bed. I kept feeling, you know, his magnetism on my body and brain. And but I didn't know if it was a reptilian or a Grey. I figured it was one or the other. And so anyway, so finally, at about, they tend to know when you have to, they know when the proper timing is to take you. So it was about 5:20 a.m. when he finally, but see, he was there, he was lingering around my bed. He showed up probably about 1 or 2 a.m. and he stayed there the whole time till it was the proper time to take me, which was about 5:20 a.m. And so finally, I kept feeling his magnetism up against my body, and eventually I did see his face, so that's how I knew it was a Grey. And of course, after the experience, it was like, oh yeah, it was obvious that it was a Grey that gave me that experience, and not a reptilian. But anyway, I did manage to see his face. He popped his little face at me as he was standing there. And I was having a hard time going to sleep. And I have to get into that perfect groggy state. I have to almost fall asleep. Like that split second before I fall asleep, then boom, that's when they have to grab me. But I couldn't even, I was just wide awake and my brain was just going a million miles an hour. So I was trying to communicate. I knew he was probably wanting to give me an experience, an out-of-body experience. So I was talking to him and I was like, well, can't you just knock me out? Because I can't fall asleep. To where, you know, they can grab me that split second before I fall asleep. And oh yeah, so he did. See, lots of times I talk to them and I get experiences. And then it's kind of like, sometimes maybe it's just coincidental that I talk to them and then boom, I get experiences. Because it's been several months now since I've had these kind of experiences where they come to my bed and take me like that. I've still had some abductions, but not quite like that. They were a little different. Well, actually, one being did come to my bedroom. That was just a couple months ago, but that was different. It wasn't like a complete big o' long scenario that was just a weird little sexual virtual reality experience. I talked about that in that other video. But yeah, so I've still been having experiences, but not where, you know, they stay lingering around my bedside and then they take me at that perfect grogginess state, take me out of body, and then they throw me into a complete scenario in another dimension, or or a synthetic dimension, whatever dimension they make up for me, with the complete scenario. It's been 6 months since I've had one of those, and I've still been trying to talk to them and everything. So yeah, so I still have experiences almost every day morning in some way, shape, or form. But I haven't had these type of out-of-body abductions in about 6 months. Okay, so anyway, I was talking to this being, this Grey, and I was like, can't you just knock me out? Because I figured if I wasn't going to be able to fall asleep, then I would end up not getting the experience. And I think that has happened many times before, where I felt an entity standing there and they wanted to give me an experience, but I just couldn't get my butt back to sleep in that perfect grogginess state. They got to take you that split second before you fall asleep for an out-of-body experience, a complete conscious out-of-body experience. And that's what they do to me. And I think they sort of was training me how to go out of body back over 10 years ago, but I could talk about that later. So anyway, I was talking to this being, I was like, can't you just knock me out? Or knock me into that complete grogginess state? So lo and behold, it felt like he took, right when it was time, which was about 5:20 a.m., it felt like he had a little magic wand in his hand, you know, and he just kind of like tapped me on the head, bam, 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 like knock you down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you know, semi-consciousness states or whatever. Because I was like wide awake. Well, they gotta knock you to a certain consciousness state so they can grab you. These are the abductions that I love, the complete, you know, out-of-body abductions, not those ass-backwards ones where they take me while I'm completely awake and then they tamper with me, and of course my consciousness stays in my physical body, and then later when they throw me in a virtual reality experience, of course then I'm conscious. But I like these types better, where they wait till I almost fall asleep and boom, they grab me. They take me out of body in many different ways. But those are the ones that I love the best. And so anyway, so finally I was talking to him and I was like, can't you just knock me out? I'm having a hard time falling asleep. So finally, boom, he took his little, it felt like he had his little magic wand and just kind of like tapped me on the head, like bam, 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 and hit me. You know, like ethereally, like bam, bam, bam. And because I was like totally wide awake, and then all of a sudden I was like, is this for real? I communicated to him to help me, you know, go into that perfect grogginess state. I was communicating to him and I was like, wow, is this for real? I mean, because he did what I asked him to. Like, he tapped me on the head, like bam, 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 with his magic wand to get me from totally awake to that semi-consciousness, semi-sleep state, to where you almost fall asleep. That's where they gotta grab you. I don't know if it's called alpha state, beta, Charlie, whatever, delta, bravo, I don't know. But I guess it's just a very light sleep state, but you're not even asleep. They gotta grab you that split second, boom, before you fall asleep for out-of-body conscious experience. So finally, so after he did that, and he pulled me out, my astral body and astral consciousness and everything, he threw me about 5,000 feet above the ground where I was astral traveling on my stomach about 1,000 miles an hour. I've astral traveled at probably 20 different speeds. There's an infinity amount of speeds that you can astral travel, but this time for whatever reason, he made me astral travel at about 1,000 miles an hour. So I was about 5,000 feet above the ground in the astral realm, and I was traveling on my stomach, probably about 1,000 miles an hour, very, very, very fast. And but it was so cool because the whole time, you know, I was traveling, I was just like, I can't believe he did what I asked him to do. He knocked me out to that perfect grogginess state to where he could grab me and take me for an out-of-body experience. And so then it made me wonder, that experience, I think it was just meant to happen. Because I've been talking to them, I mean, like, I talk to them like every night for out-of-body experiences. And so I don't know, I think I was going to get this experience regardless of whether or not I talked to, you know, him or not. And so anyway, I was looking down. It was still dark outside. It was 5:20 a.m. and even in the astral realm it was still dark. I looked down and I could see all the street lights through the darkness. The street lights. Like I said, I was only 5,000 feet above the ground, so that's not too terribly high. And I could see all the street lights and the cities. I could see, that I was going over cities. And so anyway, what he did was he took me to the NSA building in Washington, D.C. And I got there pretty fast. So yeah, so he took me to the NSA building. And then it was no time. Like once I astral traveled at 1,000 miles an hour, it took me no time to get to the NSA building. And then boom, I just stopped right there in the front of a plexiglass. Like plexiglass, I don't know if it was a door or a window. It almost seemed like it was a window or something. It seemed more like a window, and it was plexiglass, and I kept trying to hit it with my hands. I can't remember if I tried to kick it or not, but I did try to hit it with my hands, and I felt the pain, the physical pain on my hands, on my astral hands. And yeah, for whatever reason, I was trying to like break in, like bam, bam, hit it with my hands, and I could feel the pain still, even on my astral hands. So then it was just a few seconds later, then boom, I was inside the NSA building. And it was huge. It was really, really big. I was in like the hallways. He placed me there in the hallways. And it was completely white. As far as I remember, the walls were just all white. It was just white. And nobody else was around except me and the guy he placed in front of me, he was like, like one of the top dogs. And he had light colored hair and blue eyes. He was attractive. And then there was there was one black woman and a white woman like behind me. So anyway, he placed me in front of him, this man that worked for the NSA building, and he looked straight at me, and he was like, he told me about 3 or 4 sentences about NSA operations, and I told myself, because I knew I was out of body and everything. I mean, I was totally conscious that I was out of body. I knew the alien was giving me the experience, and so I told myself, whenever I'm in those situations, I always tell myself to concentrate really hard, especially if they're trying to tell me small little details where it's going to be hard for me to remember. So I told myself to concentrate really hard. But he did tell me about 4 or 5 sentences of NSA operations. And but I couldn't, once I woke up and everything back in 3D, I couldn't remember it. But he was so cool. He was almost like an alien himself because he was so nice. He was just so nice. He didn't act like a normal human. Now the white lady and black lady that was behind me, they did act like humans. But no, not this dude. This dude didn't act human. He acted too nice. Well, the aliens, they can alter anybody's personality, and they can place anybody in my abductions. They also sometimes will place aliens in my abductions. Well, that's another experience that I had that I could talk about later. It was kind of like more of a virtual reality experience, where they placed some aliens, and I'm not sure, if they were real or not, but they look real. But anyway, so he told me about operations of the NSA building, and then he said, my, what bright blue eyes you have. And in my head, I was thinking, well, that's weird. I don't have blue eyes. I was thinking that in my head, because I have brown eyes. And anyway, somehow the Grey relayed the message to me that I was supposed to be an alien in that scenario. And that black woman and the white guy and the white lady, they weren't supposed to know it. They weren't supposed to know that I was an alien. And I knew I was under the abduction. I knew I was out of body and everything. But for whatever reason, I was just like, okay, and first of all, this was really cool. The alien, the Grey that gave me this experience, he altered my personality. Like, he made me be like age 12 or 13 years old. I felt like I was 12 or 13. It was so cool. And so anyway, on the left side of his shoulder, I put my hand on his shoulder, and I was like, this was after he said I had, like, wow, like, what blue eyes you have. But he was so cool, man. He did not act human. But anyway, so and I didn't really act human either. So I put my left hand on his shoulder, and after he said I had blue eyes or whatever, I was like, you just gotta tell me this. You gotta answer this. You just have to answer this for me. And I had my left hand on his shoulder, on his right shoulder, and I was like, you just gotta tell me this. You gotta answer this for me. Answer me this question. And I was like, do you know you're in a dream? And he looked at me and he was just like, well, yeah, they already told us that. Whoever they is, I have no idea. And then behind me, there was a black lady. She looked about 60s, and she had balding hair, and she did kind of look familiar. Because see, these aliens, they can put people that you worked with before, even many, many, many years ago, they can put those in your scenarios. So anyway, I looked at the black lady, and I was like, do you know you're in a dream? And she's like, well, yes, they already told us that. They already told us that. And I knew I was in an out-of-body experience. I knew, I had been astral traveling and all that. I already knew all that. But I guess I felt like I didn't want to complicate things, so that's why I asked them if they knew they were in a dream. Not that did they know that they were maybe out of body. So anyway, what the deal was is this Grey was trying to answer my call. I made a call. There's a thing called the call, and from my experience, it's very true. Because all this times, I've been asking for all of these experience, but I thought I was talking to my spirit guides and all that back over 10 years ago, and these aliens kept running to give me the experiences. And I thought it was all spirits. So if you make a call to them and ask them a question, or if you tell them that you want an out-of-body experience or whatever, or past life flashback or whatever, they'll come and answer your call. Yeah, so that's a very real phenomenon. It's called the call. And I think this woman named Nancy Leader or something like that, I think she's the one that talked about that. So anyway, because on the forums I was talking about, this guy was asking me about the dream people that are in my abduction out-of-body experiences. And I told him, well, I don't really think they're even real. You know what I'm saying? I think they're just placed there by the aliens, artificially. So anyway, he was trying to answer my call pertaining to that, because that guy on the forums was asking me about those people in my dreams. I mean, not my dreams, my out-of-body experiences. And he wanted to know if, like if they knew they were dreaming or whatever. So anyway, I think this Grey being was trying to answer my call. So he gave me this experience. It was so cool. And so anyway, it's unbelievable what they can do, how they take you out of body and stuff. It's such a blast. But yeah, so anyway, I believe that that's what he was trying to do, was trying to answer my call pertaining to the dream people. When the guy on the forums that I used to be on was asking me, we were private messaging back and forth, and he was asking me about the dream people that are in my abductions, my out-of-body abductions. And so anyway, I do believe he was trying to answer my call. Okay, so the end of the abduction, which this was kind of weird. I don't know why he had to throw this in there. But at the end of the abduction, after after the black woman and the white woman was like, oh yeah, they already told us that. We know we're in a dream. They already told us that. I was not in a dream. I was totally out of body. So anyway, then I floated down the white hallways, kind of down an incline, down the steps. I floated down some steps, down the hallway, and this woman that I used to know, this redheaded woman, she was kind of tall, not as tall as me, but kind of tall. She was walking on her left, and another redheaded woman, a shorter woman, was walking on her right, they were in the NSA building too, and they were just like la 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 la, like walking down the hallways away from me. It's almost as if they had to go into the building to do some business or whatever, and they were walking down the halls away from me, and I was like, hey Brenda, what up, what up? And I felt like I was being kind of obnoxious, and I felt like at that time I was more like myself. But previously I felt like he was making me like 12 years old. But yeah, so when I was being obnoxious like that, I was like, hey Brenda, what up? And that was a woman that I used to know and that I used to date or whatever back in Texas. Why he threw that in there, I have no idea. And I was like, hey Brenda, what up, what up? And they did not hear me and they did not see me. And that was the end of the abduction. So anyway, a couple days later, I did email my friend Brenda in Texas. And I said, did you have a dream that you were in the NSA building? And of course, she said that she did not. Now, I do believe there have been a few times where the Greyz have taken me out of body to real time in 3D. I can talk about that later. There's a couple times now when I've had out of body experiences where they've taken me not to an artificial dimension or realm or whatever, but where I was actually in real time in 3D. And I'm going to try to ask more of that. You know, like to go to the White House, but not an artificial dimension, but like in, just to be out of body and to stay in 3D, but to astral travel to a location that's in 3D in real time. I'm going to try to ask about that to see if they'll give me more experiences like that. Okay, so anyway, so that was the end of that experience to the NSA building. It was a total freaking blast. Thank you very much, little gray bean, for giving me that experience. Yeah, because it was a total freaking blast. And, okay, so this is 2 physical abductions. Now, I know I've been physically abducted all my life, but because my brain wasn't evolved and ascended, I didn't know what was happening during those other physical abductions that I had prior to, 2 or 3 years ago. I wasn't conscious of them because my brain had not ascended and evolved. I was still in a trance. So anyway, this physical abduction was January 29th of 2014. And it was freaking horrid. Like, I didn't even want to talk to the beings. I didn't even want to talk to the ETs for several days because I was just like mad. Well, it was a couple weeks that it's like I just wanted to pretend like they didn't exist because I was just mad at them. But, there's these other little beings that just give me all this artwork and stuff outside. They give me all these orb artworks and they morph into different shapes and images and stuff. So it's not right to be mad at them because they don't do the abductions. But yeah, the way this abduction went down, it was horrid. And I was really mad at the aliens I didn't get over it till about 2 weeks probably. So anyway, on January 29th, 2014, for some reason I got really, really, really tired at about 10 minutes after 9. I was really, really tired. I went to bed. I was in bed by about 10 minutes after 9. I believe I fell asleep within 10 minutes because I was so tired. And then, for whatever reason, like, boom, it was time for a physical abduction and I got abducted by at least 3 or 4 little gray beans. Well, I just say little, but they weren't exactly little. They were like freaking they'll do what they want when they want, you know what I mean? Yeah, these beings, these Greyz that do physical abductions, they're down to business. They're not there to freaking, oh hi little earthling, I want to commune with you. Those types are not there to do that. I don't know what the hell they did, but they're not there to do that. And so on January 29, 2014, I laid down and then boom, I fell asleep within 10 minutes. Well, what the deal was, the Greyz, before, well, right as they abducted me, what they did, as they physically abducted me, what they did was they threw a virtual reality scenario in my face, where, and it was so real. I mean, I thought it was so real. I was so real. I was walking, but see, I was in bed. I was in bed. I was in bed. Well, until they took me out of bed. But I opened the door to my bedroom to check on my cat, to make sure my cat was on the bed and everything, because I have to keep 2 cats separated. So I opened it. They did a virtual reality experience on me right after I, fell asleep or whatever. So I opened the door just to like check on my cats. I went inside the bedroom, and like I say, I should have been laying there in bed already, sleeping. And I reached back to close the door with my left hand, and then I reached back to close the door with my left hand, and then I just passed out to the ground, on the floor, on the carpet. I just totally passed out and fell to the ground. But it was real. It felt totally real. Well, the thing is, that part may have been virtual reality experience, but then that's when they physically abducted my ass, and that part was totally real. That was not under virtual reality. They physically abducted my ass, and but the thing is, I didn't even. When I got abducted on April 4th, I knew they were coming for me. It was a different group that abducted me. I knew they were coming for me, but this time it was so unexpected. It was very, very unexpected. And I think that's why it just disturbed me so badly, because it was so unexpected. I did not expect it at all on that night at 10 after 9 and p.m. Okay, so anyway, so after that, after they physically abducted me, after I fell to the ground and they physically abducted me, then I woke up under the abduction, and the Greyz, what they were doing was, they kept, well, actually, I remember laying there on my back in the bedroom, and I knew I was under the abduction, and I was thinking, oh my God, are they going to try to pull me into the living room? And then the tall whites, I don't even know who the hell the tall whites are, but I think they're like bad. I think they're just shape-shifting, they're shape-shifting reptilians that, that are kind of bad, and they molest people. I think that's what the tall whites are. I mean, they all can freaking shapeshift, especially these reptilians. So no telling, if they really are a tall white or if they're just freaking hardcore lizard-looking reptilian. So, but I don't know. But anyway, I learned of these tall whites previously, before this abduction, or I just learned of that name or whatever. And so I guess I had that in my consciousness. Like, I thought the tall whites were, like, bad or whatever. So I kept thinking, they were, like, oh my God, they're going to... Because I knew I was laying there, like, on the carpet, and I kept thinking they were going to, like, pull me into the living room. I'm not sure if they took me outside of my living room, period. But, they blocked 80% of my memory. But I did wake up under the abduction. And the only thing I remember is I totally woke up, and it was totally horrid. These Greyz, were physically stroking my toes on each feet. I mean, they were massaging my toes. It felt like they were massaging my toes. They were stroking my toes on each feet. And then the next thing I know, I hear this woof, like this gush. I've heard this noise many times. Where they teleport you back to bed, you'll hear this like noise, like this whoosh. I can't explain it really, as they teleport you back to bed. So they teleported me back to bed, and then I looked at the clock, and it was 10:30. So that abduction went on for an hour and 20 minutes. And see, I only remember the beginning, the middle, and the end. When they teleported me back to bed, I totally remember that. I totally remember the beginning of the abduction, and I woke up during the middle of the abduction where they were stroking my freaking toes and massaging my feet. But when they were doing that, all I saw was complete nothing. I saw nothing. I didn't even see black. I mean, I saw nothing. Nothing. I just felt them freaking massaging my toes before they teleported me back to bed. And then, of course, I looked at the clock, and boom, it was 10:30. So that abduction lasted about an hour and 20 minutes. And, of course, then I got up and went to the bathroom, and I just felt like I was, like really drugged up or something. But that feeling doesn't last long. It wears off pretty fast. Yeah, I felt like I was drugged up, and I was still kind of under the drugs that they gave me, which I don't think they give me drugs at all. I think they use their mental mind magic. I think they just use their mind to somehow, or they use some kind of ethereal medicine, but it's not physical medicine, if you know what I'm saying. Because, but yes, I did still feel like I was drugged up as I walked into the bathroom to go to the bathroom. But yeah, so that experience had disturbed me pretty badly for several days. And anyway, I think I did have one small flashback, and that was like a couple months later or whatever, when I was in my car and I was getting groggy. I had one small flashback, but it wasn't, very good. I saw this like gray, just like looking down, tampering with me. Tampering with somebody, just your normal little gray shithead looking alien was looking down, like tampering with somebody, which I believe was me. That's the only flashback I had. But yeah, so this group was a service to self, man. Yeah, this group was more of a service to self group. And the physical abduction that I had on April 4th, 2013. Yeah, 2013 of April 4th. This physical abduction I had on a Thursday morning. And, hey, yeah, so that's kind of weird because, oh, well, no, it's not, because they do it right as you fall asleep. Sometimes they'll wait for you to fall asleep. And, so once I fell asleep, boom, which was 10 after 9, they took me. But they have the ability to make you groggy as well. But that was a service to self group that abducted me. But on April 4th, that was a service to others. Because I knew they were coming for me. I knew they were coming for me. So what the deal was, I knew they were coming for me. So what the deal was, I drank coffee all night. And now I can't even tolerate any kind of caffeine. But I drank coffee all night. And so they waited. They patiently waited till I fell asleep. Till, the split second. Anyway, they waited till I fell asleep on my own. Which wasn't till about 12 minutes after 4 a.m. I finally couldn't take staying awake any longer, and I fell asleep at 12 minutes after 4 a.m. And then that's when they freaking abducted me physically. And then it was about 7 minutes after 5 a.m. was when they sucked me back in bed. But yeah, so on I'm trying to remember how it went down. On April 4th, like I say, I knew they were coming for me. That's why I drank coffee all night, because I was nervous. I didn't know what they were going to do. I was totally nervous. Yeah, so what the deal was, they sucked me out of bed, and then the only thing I remember was being sucked back in bed at about 6 or 7 minutes after 5 a.m. So they blocked my whole memory under the abduction, and then I remember them, as they sucked me back in bed, I was just like, "Ah!" I was like totally fucking screaming bloody murder. And it was I totally remember everything. It sounded like my screams, faded on into the other dimension as they placed me back in bed. It's like I was in 3D screaming bloody murder as they sucked me back in bed. But then I heard my screams kind of fade off into another dimension. Yeah, it's really weird. And then, of course, when I woke up and I forgot this part. What I heard too was, as they sucked me back in bed, it felt like they had to sort of manifest as physical, to get me back in bed and everything, because it felt like I heard my cat was like, it felt like my cat fell off the nightstand. Yeah, so she sort of like fell off the nightstand and was ruffled around as they placed me back in bed. It seemed like the whole UFO ship just kind of overlaid my bedroom as they dropped me off. And yeah, and I heard my cat like fall off the damn nightstand right there by my bed, and she's a pretty big cat. Like probably 11 or 12 pounds. And then as I opened my eyes after I screamed bloody murder as they sucked me back in bed, as I opened my eyes, I saw like a blue light, boom, just like bounce off my pillow, like a blue light, boom, like right after they dropped me off. But yeah, you see, that experience lasted all that time from like about 4:12 a.m. or whatever till about 7 minutes after 5. And I don't remember anything except being sucked back in bed, and I remember all the commotion that my cat in the nightstand made. You know, my cat falling off the damn bed, and the nightstand. And of course I did have paranormal activity leading up to this incident. Like a light bounced around, a little light flickered and bounced around my cubicle at work. This light just bounced around, and of course then that was just a few weeks before I realized the Greyz were in my house or whatever, or a few months. And I was just thinking, oh, okay, I guess maybe that's my spirit guide, you know. I thought all this damn paranormal activity that I had a long time ago, I thought it was all spirit guides and spirits, the two friends that she hangs out with. But yeah, I did have a lot of paranormal activity before this incident. Well, I still have a lot of paranormal activity regardless, if I have an abduction or not. But, so anyway, that abduction, didn't last very long, like almost 45 minutes. But thank God I did have some flashbacks. And this is what, the flashbacks, I think I had the flashbacks, it was about a month later. A month or two later, it was quite a while, it wasn't instantly. It was like 2 months later, I had the flashbacks when I was trying to like meditate or whatever, because at that time I was listening to like YouTube videos, and I had my computer in my bedroom, so I was trying to listen to like YouTube meditations, and as I laid down, like boom, there was this tall gray. He was a tall gray with like a leather metallic suit on, and he like bam, he like shot this like laser beam at my brain, and I was just like bam, it hit my brain and everything turned bright white in my consciousness, like bright white, as he like shot some laser beam at my brain. And this was a little asshole gray man for sure. He had a metallic whitish gray suit on, and he was a tall being. He was kind of tall, not real tall, but I would say at least 6 foot tall, which is kind of tall for a gray. And but he seemed kind of rogue, you know. Okay, so that was a flashback I totally believe was from the April 4th abduction. Oh, I forgot to tell you. How can I not remember this part? Oh, I forgot to tell you. As the Greyz sucked me back in bed, and after I screamed bloody murder, before I opened my eyes, this was a little short gray. This short little gray was, he was really, really short. He was and he had like a white militaristic leather suit on. He was standing there at the left side of the UFO ship, like the left side of the entrance to the UFO ship. He was just standing there, and he was just like flickering at me like bam, 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 like I just abducted your ass. He was flashing in my consciousness before I opened my eyes after he sucked me back in bed. And this was right before I opened my eyes. He was standing there, this little gray, like as if he was telling me, hey bitch, we just abducted your ass. Like bam, 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 bam. And he was a short little shit, militaristic gray, with a white leather suit on. And I think he did have some symbols on his either right or left side, as far as I remember, but I can't remember what they look like. I can't believe I forgot that part. And then when I opened my eyes, that's when I saw the blue light, bam, bounce off my pillow. Totally bounced off my pillow. Okay, so then I told you about the flashback. There was another flashback where I laid down. I was listening to meditation music, and right as I laid down, boom, this little bubble butt headed being. They do have some pictures on the internet. I don't know what these beings are called, but they have a head like a bubble butt person. Total bubble butt. And he started like walking up to me like all militaristic. I'm sorry, not all militaristically. He started walking up to me like all animalistically. Totally like an animal, just bam, 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 bam. And was kind of like bobbing his head around down at my face like he was curious to see what a human face looked like. And, but he wasn't mean or anything, but he looked very, very creepy. He did not look exactly nice either, but he wasn't mean. Then, okay, there was one more flashback I had. And yes, I believe that was from the April 4th abduction. The other flashback I had, I believe also could have been from the April 4th abduction on the UFO ship, when they took me to the UFO ship. I'm not positive if this was a flashback of that abduction, but I think it was. So just because there's some like dickhead, Greyz, and aliens on the ship, doesn't mean there's millions of other nice ones on the ship. Because this flashback I had was early in the morning before I had to go to work, and this tall being just like touched me, like bam, energetically he like touched me and jarred me awake, and I was just like bam. He touched me from his dimension, or he was at the foot of my bed, and he was so awesome. He was like, he had his arms out, and he was like hovering all around me. He was hovering about with his arms. It was like waving them all around me, like bam, 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 like all robotically. Yeah, he had his arms all strung out, like he was trying to tell me, hello, Earthling. And, but he wasn't a gray. I don't know what kind of species he was, but he had big old round eyes, and he was very, very, very tall. And he was so benevolent and friendly. He was so loving. He gave off totally loving energy. And he was just awesome. I named him too, for whatever reason. I named him Tony. And that's my brother's name, but I named this being Tony. And he kind of had like Aqua. He was like Aqua. In his dimension, he was still kind of fuzzy. When he touched me energetically to wake me up and jar me awake, and then I saw him, he was still a little bit, his dimension and everything, it was still a little bit fuzzy, but he was such an awesome being. I could totally, yeah, it was weird. It was like he was standing in fog or something. Yeah, it was totally like he was standing in fog. And, but I could totally make out what kind of being he was and what he looked like. And like I said, he had really, really, really long arms, and he was very, very tall. And he was just like all robotically, like after he jarred me awake and touched me energetically, and after I, woke up and saw him, but I think I still had my eyes closed and everything. I'm not sure exactly. And he was just like waving his head all about and his arms all about, like robotically, like, hi, 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 Earthling. And I believe that was also a flashback from the April 4th abduction from 2013. So anyway, those were my 3 abductions. One to the NSA building, which was a total blast, and that was non-physical. The physical abductions are very stressful. Yeah, that's another thing too. That whole day, I went to work the next day after that physical abduction from April 4th. And, oh man, I was like so exhausted. It was a type of exhaustion that you can't explain. I was so exhausted, but I was also exhausted because I had a hard time. I stayed up all night because I knew they were going to do something. So I was exhausted from not getting much sleep. But still, there was another type of exhaustion that went along with it that had to do with being abducted by these beings, no doubt. But, I did not feel that way, the next day from that January 29th abduction. I didn't feel that way, I guess because I got lots of sleep, after the abduction. But, yeah, so you'll feel very, very, very exhausted the next day once they physically abduct you. Okay, so I hope you like my 3 abduction experiences, but bye.